Do you have solo economic dependency? That is, if you aren't working, you aren't making money. The Art of Passive Income Podcast is the solution. Discover passive income models so you can enjoy life on your own terms. Let freedom ring.
Hey, it's Mark Podolsky, the Land Geek, with your favorite niche real estate website, www.thelandgeek.com. And I'm really excited for today's guest. He's like an entrepreneurial, crazy genius, but real estate related too. But before we talk to our guest, I'd be remiss if I didn't properly introduce my co-host. You know him, you love him, the professor, the brain, Scott Todd from scotttodd.net, landmodo.com. And most importantly, if not automating your Craigslist and your Facebook postings, postingdomination.com/the Land Geek. Scott Todd, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm great. I really feel like I can really die in peace now, knowing that I got you in some way addicted to coffee. Because you're always like the Diet Coke guy, and you finally went full into, and this is how it starts. You start with like little sugary coffee drinks, and eventually you go black.
Yeah, I'll tell you when, it's pretty bad when, like last night I went out and got one, and then I had a little bit of a break today, midday, and I'm like, it's a little cold outside, go off and get one. I did marry it though, Mark. I married it with my Diet Coke. I got a Diet Coke and the coffee. I'm missing the fact that the coffee's already gone. So bad habit, but it's all on you.
Well, speaking of good habits, how about somebody that gets, I can't say it, the S word, the SHI word done. This is a kid-friendly show.
Yeah. So you know, you get the ship done, man. Ship. SHIP. Get the ship done.
He gets the shirt done.
Okay. I'm with you.
Like I always say with my kids, get school done, right?
He gets school done. It's Josh Smith. If you don't know Josh Smith, you've probably heard him. You probably heard of his podcast, GSD Mode Podcast. But if you don't know about Josh, he's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Inc. magazine. He's top 1% of realtors worldwide. He was voted the 30th top realtor in America by the Wall Street Journal. He sold over 5,000 homes. He's the host of the #1 most downloaded real estate agent podcast. He's coached, mentored thousands of realtors all over the world. And he's a husband to an amazing, straight up, badass wife. And he's a father to absolutely 3 awesome kids. I don't know his kids. I don't know if his wife is a badass. I'm sure she is if she's married to Josh. Josh Smith, how are you?
Yeah, hey, I'm doing great, man. It's an honor to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you. And, you're not just a realtor. Let's kind of walk us through the number of businesses you have and how they operate.
Yeah, so right now today I've got five total companies. Over the years, I've been on this entrepreneur journey for just over 13 years, and I've had 10 total companies throughout the years, and have been able to sell and exit from numerous of those. But today, 5 total companies, all but one is tied to the real estate space. I have one that's a health and fitness supplement company, but everything else is tied to real estate.
Okay, so what are those real estate companies?
So I've got my real estate, residential real estate company, which you talked about in the intro there, which all started from, I started this journey when I was 23 years old. I wanted to go open up my own health club. And 23 years old, college dropout, no credit, no money to my name. I needed an $800,000 loan. And I couldn't get the loan. So I was like, well, I need to go bank some money and raise some capital. It's 2005, Phoenix, Arizona. Everybody in real estate was making a ton of money. So I'm like, well, I love sales. I love people, and I like to work, right? So I'm like, I'll jump into real estate and raise the capital to at least for the down payment for the loan. So this was just supposed to be a stepping stone to the vehicle to go open up my own health club. And very quickly, I fell massively in love with the real estate industry. I always say that health clubs and health and fitness industry is my passion. Real estate's my obsession. And so a lot of this, none of this was really intentional, to be honest, right? It's just kind of happened, right? So, but I fell in love with real estate and just kept trucking. And next thing you know, I need an assistant. And next thing you know, I need buyer's agents. And then you fast forward 13 years later today, I've got 82 agents that work exclusively for me. And an amazing admin team. And that's just really what's led to these other ventures, like the coaching and consulting company. Never thought in a million years I'd get into coaching and consulting. But as I started having success in my own real estate career and getting asked to speak and being published in certain magazines and podcasts, the demand was just there. And people just kept asking for advice and for that mentorship. And that led into my 90-day mastery bootcamp program, which is an online digital program. And, so I'm launching that, doing that. And there became a need for a specific type of software, and couldn't figure out a solution for my coaching clients. And so we went out there and created the software. Now our software is all over the United States and Canada. We have over 2,000 users on our software, and just exploding and growing. And so each of these has just kind of led to the next.
Yeah, I love it. Scott Todd, what are your thoughts? Oh, Scott, you're on mute.
Sorry, sounds familiar with the software, doesn't it, Mark?
It does sound familiar.
It's funny because, I think it's interesting to see how things evolve, right? Like, I'm sure, Josh, that you didn't set out with like, man, I'm going to go create software. I'm going to create all these boot camps. I'm going to create all this stuff. And it kind of evolves into that piece because you start trying to help people, and then helping people is kind of a funny thing because it's kind of a slippery slope, right? Like you go out there, you start helping people, and then all of a sudden people might think like, oh, look, you're kind of sleazy, slimy. But how is that when you start off with the intent of just helping people to help them, and it's kind of cool to see your evolution, kind of where you were actually the realtor and then kind of let it full circle. So what do you see as like some of the kind of the challenges that people having it going? Like, for me, I see a lot of people that don't have a lot of like self-confidence or, belief that they can go do it. Is that something that you see, or do you see something else?
Yeah. I think if you were to break it down to the most minute thing that holds people back, it probably is just like you said, a limited belief, of some sorts of that they're different. I used to be there to an extent. Like I remember when I first got into real estate, looking at these real estate, gods, if you will, right? Like the top of the top, and putting them on pedestals and truly thinking that they were different, right? Truly thinking that they had something I didn't, or they had some type of unique genetic code or whatever. But as you start creating success, you realize over the years that, look, they're no different than you or I or anybody else, right? They're just people that are willing to just keep pushing no matter what. We all go through the ups and downs, and so yeah. I would agree with the limiting beliefs, but then from there, I think it's just the preparation. Like you got to be prepared. Business is, it's filled with ups and downs. Right. And you've got to be mentally prepared for those challenges that are kind of going to come along the way. I've yet to meet any successful self-made entrepreneur that, hasn't went through hell and back to create what they've created. And I think that's one false belief out there is that their path was different, right. Or whatever. But it's like, man, there's if I could identify uber successful people, and if you study like the greats, like an Elon Musk, for example, right? So his book by Ashley Vance, Elon Musk's book, is such a brilliant book, right? So he goes out there, creates PayPal, gets his, $225 million, starts SpaceX, starts Tesla, just flops on all of it, loses everything, foreclosed on his house, sleeping on his buddy's couch. His wife leaves him, divorces him, takes the kids, on the 11th hour, a VC fund comes in and kind of saves the company, and he was able to take on from there. But so that one superpower, if you will, though, is just the ability to endure way more pain than anybody else, or than most people. I think people would. I think we're all capable of enduring the pain. You just got to be in a business for the right reasons. You got to have that obsession where it's, you're so committed that you're willing to go through whatever it takes to go out there and create it. And if you're willing to do that, and you have the mindset and you have the understanding that pain and power come from the same place, man, it just it can be an amazing ride.
Yeah, I love that. And really, you're kind of getting to what the essence of purpose is, right? So when your purpose is so much bigger than you're absolutely willing to go through all that pain. And I think that's where that fundamentally needs to start. And, referencing Elon Musk, like, hey, I want to, save the planet. That's a pretty big purpose. To definitely go through. What's interesting about your entrepreneurial journey to me, Josh, is that, I've got friends who are realtors, and being a realtor can be great, right? And I mean, essentially, you can kind of make your own hours. You don't have to necessarily, you don't feel like you have a boss, right? You can feel like an entrepreneur in some respects. The problem I see, and maybe I'm wrong, is that if a realtor is not getting listings or showing houses, they're not going to make any commissions, right? So there is some type of solo economic dependency. How did you sort of cross that threshold from having solo economic dependency into creating passive income, building this agency, if you will, where you're making money now and you're not the one having to show houses?
Yeah, so for me, I've always been, from day one, I knew I wanted to become a business owner. And you hit the nail on the head with real estate agents. And this isn't nothing to do with real estate. This is just business, right? Like you could be an AC contractor, and most small business owners don't have a business. According to the IRS, they do, but they have a job, right? You don't have a business until you can step away from it and have it still operating without your involvement, right? So I always had the desire to go out there and create a business. My father owned and operated health clubs for 30 years. So I grew up, in an entrepreneurial family and witnessing that. And I knew that was always something I wanted to do, which was a blessing. When I got into real estate, I always looked at it from that lens. And, but you got to do it right. It's one of these things where with all business, I know a lot of people that want to get into business want to become that business owner. But man, you got to be very methodical and you got to be smart with it. I mean, there's going to be an element of that grind, of that hustle. And I also think that that's so critical, right? Because the only way that you can go out there and develop a business is to have something built on amazing processes and systems that you can plug other people into that they can go out there and follow. Well, the only way that you can build epic, amazing processes and systems is by really being in the trenches yourself and knowing exactly how you want it done. Actually, I've got this right here. This is from my real estate company. Here's our playbook, right, for our real estate agents, and everything in here. I mean, step by step, there's not one thing that anybody in our organization doesn't know how to do. We've got it. We've got our manuals, we've got online training about it, but we can bring a brand new agent fresh out of school, put them through our platform, and day one, they're able to plug into world-class presentation, buyer presentation, whatever it is. And it's so funny because I consult a lot of entrepreneurs from other spaces, and you constantly hear my biggest challenge is finding great people, right? And whenever I hear that, I'm like, all that's telling me is that your systems and processes are absolutely terrible. It took me about 7 full years before I was 100% out of production. Now, knowing what I know now, I could probably do it in 2 or 3. But it was that slow, methodical growth of getting the systems and processes and identifying the right people in place where you could eventually exit. But you got to have that vision of what that looks like and build it right from the ground up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Scott Todd, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a process, right? Like Mark, we talk about it all the time. We talk about like the 30X rule in terms of when you bring someone on, especially in the beginning, you need to be prepared to spend 30X the time it takes you to do the job yourself. You need to be able to invest that time or be willing to invest that time, because essentially what will happen is if you invest that time, you're going to get people that are able to do it or capable of doing it. You're going to do what Josh just said, like you're going to be able to create these documents, these processes. It's going to be able to lay it out there. You should be able to take an untrained person and just insert them into the business and let them go. But, it takes time, and it takes you kind of chipping away at it ever so slowly. But once you have it, it's a great thing.
Yeah, and what a place to start. I mean, and today's with technology, it's so brilliant, right? Because between YouTube and Google Drive and Trello, which are all free, you can create all of this and create it as you're doing it, right? But anytime you have a win in your business, whether it's something that just went right, like within the Land Geek, when you're submitting out your offers or whatever that looks like, just document every step of what you're doing. Create checklists around it. Anything online, you can do a screen share and create it and explain it as you're doing it. Then you create a video library and you have this stuff documented. Eventually you have a full library of your whole business from A to Z that's documented. So it doesn't really have to take that much more effort. You just have to have that intention of doing it. But, it all comes down to, I'm a systems and processes freak, right? I love data, I love numbers, and I love systems and processes. And it wasn't always that way, but once I discovered the power of business, and really that's what drives a business, I developed that love for it. But also the same thing comes from what you just mentioned about, taking somebody that has no experience, which I do all the time in our business or any of our businesses. But you also have to have the right process and systems for hiring, right? Like not everybody is resourceful enough or has the capability to take on every role, right? So you've got to know how to identify the right talent. And what I would say my biggest mistake, my biggest regret, if I could go back and give myself any piece of advice from when I started my businesses, would have been to master the hiring process early on. It took me about a decade of not spending the time to really master the hiring process. It's probably cost me millions of dollars over the years, right? So you got to learn how to hire right and have those system processes to plug the right people in.
Yeah. What's your philosophy when it comes to hiring? So my philosophy is hire fast, if you want one job, let's say it's for a virtual assistant, you hire 3, you keep 1. So hire fast, fire fast, but that's, in sort of a more task-oriented role, something that's more involved and has much more value. You might say, really take your time and hire slowly. Do they fit into the culture? What's your philosophy with that?
Yeah. So, it becomes very difficult. And the reason I say it becomes difficult is, I'm not Apple computers, right? So I can't spend 18 months finding that right hire. Like with my businesses and some of my businesses more so than others, there's not a week that goes by that we're not having to hire somebody new because we're just growing so fast. And we don't have months and months and months to wait. So we've had to identify the most effective ways that we can to hire great talent in the quickest way we possibly can. So, it can take, maybe 2 weeks between beginning to end of a hiring process for us. If we're not confident in the hire, we'll take as long as it takes to find that right person. But then from there, man, again, it comes down to systems and it really comes down to the systems, right? I don't believe in managing people. When you have the systems dialed in, you manage the systems that manage and empower your people. And then you can inspect what you expect. So it makes it like, I'm not going to sit here and say I never get hiring wrong, but I know it instantaneously. Like you just talked about a VA, right? So for me, I'm going to have a series of checklists. I'm going to have it where it's where things just, everything is QC. Right? Where I don't have to micromanage them. They can go work their 8-hour day. I might have to oversee what they've done for 15 minutes at the end of the day, right? But we all know what winning or losing looks like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And that way eliminates a lot of that risk, right? But yeah, I'm in a position where I've got to hire pretty fast. And unfortunately, sometimes I got to fire fast. But we were able to identify that quickly. We don't have a dud that's riding with us for 4 months. We know if they're a dud like week 1, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Scott Todd, I love your hiring philosophy. You want to tell Josh?
My hiring philosophy,
your system is like beautiful.
Well, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and I'm kind of going to put them to a test, right? Put them to a test from the get-go. And then, they're going to go through a series of basically they're going to jump through hoops, right? They're going to go through a test. Can they do kind of some of the stuff? For example, on a salesperson, I want to see if they follow up, right? I want to see if they're persistent. So I'm going to drag them out there just like a customer would. And then it's amazing how many people who are supposedly in sales, who are persistent, who will follow up with you like 3 times and they'll give up. Well, that's not the person that I want. What I want is someone who's going to stalk me, right? Like text me, call me, do all of the stuff that I would want them to do on actual sales. And so I delay them out there. I put them out there, and I try to create these tests for people to go and do it. And then once I have them, then what I'm doing is I'm giving them a series of little tests, right? Like to onboard them. So, for example, for people that are doing due diligence for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I have a case study already created. I know what the answers are, right? Like it's a test. I tell them, okay, listen, here's the way it's going to work. I'm going to give you, I want you to go do due diligence on this particular property. So they go and they do it. and they bring it back to me. And I've already done the due diligence on this property. Everybody that starts to do due diligence for me, they start here. So I know the answers. I know what I'm looking for. I know good from bad. And it's not like I got to say, well, it looks pretty good to me. I give them the same kind of a test. And then from there, if they're good, or I think I can work with them and kind of mold them into what I want, now we're talking. But if they're a train wreck, if they're sales and they don't keep following up with me, and I delay them, I'm like, hey, yeah, listen, man, I'm in a call right now. Call me back in like an hour, and I'll hang up. I'll mark the phone number, like don't answer it. Goes to voicemail. Are they leaving me a message? Are they hitting me the next day? Are they texting me? Hey, whatever. Are they following up with me? Are they doing what they said they're going to do? And you'll hear me, Mark. I was amazed, man. Like a guy told me I'm like, what is the quality about you? He's like, I am the best, most persistent person around. I'm like, cool. He gave up after 4 attempts. Well, what are you talking about, man? Why weren't you showing up to my house?
Yeah, absolutely. So Josh, what do you believe is normal or wise or cool that other people think is crazy?
Oh man. I mean, it's, the thing that I get the most negative feedback on, right, from the podcast and whatever is, the work ethic that I have, right. And one thing I always think is crazy is like, look, people will go out there and worship like a LeBron James of the world, right? That's out there grinding. And for entrepreneurs, if we go out there and work our butts off, right, and grind and put in the hours that we do, we get criticized very heavily for it. You're going to miss out on life. You need to slow down. Like all the the things that people say out there. But if we were professional athletes or whatever and chasing our dreams, then it's socially acceptable. Yeah, right. Where it's like, look, we're just out there building our dreams and chasing our dreams, and that's probably the craziest thing I think is from the entrepreneur standpoint is how difficult it is and how much negativity that's surrounded around that work ethic, and even getting buy-in from your family members and your greatest friends on what you're doing and what you're creating. Right. It's pretty damn comical.
Yeah, I mean, your work ethic reminds me of like a Gary Vee or a Grant Cardone, and those guys sort of are, they probably get the same type of criticism where you have other people saying, hey, look, on your deathbed, right? Are you going to really say, I wish I worked more, right? But if what you're doing doesn't feel like work and it's a purpose bigger than you, and it's trying to achieve something bigger than you, then why not, right?
Yeah.
So if you love it, then you're loving your life. I mean, for me, like I'm never going to retire. I look at people, use marketing and they're like, oh, I'm on the golf course. And like, no, that doesn't, I mean, it's great for them. I'm not going to judge, but that's not how I want to spend my days. Just relaxing. I always want to be adding value, right? Scott Todd, what about you?
Yeah.
So you're going to keep hustling, Mark. You're going to keep out there, keep it going, huh?
Well, look, every day I'm hustling.
Hustling, man. You got to do the dance.
I mean, but for me, the hustle is like for Josh, like, can I create systems? Can I create processes that get me more time, right? So I don't want to just be solo economic dependent. I don't want to work, really, really hard just to say, hey, I worked an 80-hour week this week, like an attorney, like it's some, badge of honor. I want to say I worked really, really hard so that I can, don't have to work hard for on that for the rest of my life, right?
Mark, it's funny because we're recording this on a Tuesday, and on last Friday to Monday, so over that 4-day period, we sold 8 properties with an enterprise value of over $100,000. Okay.
Right.
While all of that was taking place, literally I was on a cruise ship. Okay. On Saturday, when like 2 of the sales was taking place, I'm sitting at a rustic Mexican restaurant on the Caribbean Sea, enjoying margaritas and lunch. and family. I don't even know what's going on out there, right? It's just happening. It's just flowing. And then I got off the boat yesterday to find that, kind of get an update on a Monday morning. Hey, we sold 5 properties at that point, and we're working on closing 3 more. It'll be done today. We ended up selling 8 properties. And my time invested in those was absolutely zero. And so, if you're going to go out and you're going to create processes and you're going to create systems, and you're going to create teams to go do the work, well, then ultimately now you're just running the playbook. And that's not really a lot of time, a lot of work. It's not like you're out there slaving away and doing the job. You're being the investor, which is, I think, what we're all kind of working towards being, is kind of be the investor in this business and let the thing run on its own. And then I think you have the best to retire. I mean, look at Warren Buffett. The guy's an investor, and all he does is sit in his office all day and read. So it's kind of cool to see, that's what Josh has done with his businesses. It's kind of what we're talking about here. And so what are you trying to achieve, and go do it?
Yeah.
Right.
Those things where, in the beginning, when in any business, right? You talked about like Gary Vee, right? He's always talking about hustle and grind. And there's an element where that is absolutely necessary, right? But it very quickly can start off being your greatest virtue, but then become your greatest vice if you're not careful. Right? Where it's like what the 3 of us do today isn't necessarily hustle and grind, right? It's a different style when I'm talking about work that we're doing at this point, right? A lot of it is just thinking over strategy. A lot of it is self-development, thinking big vision, big picture. So which is the great part about it. And this really comes down to just getting clarity on what it is that you want, what it is that you honor. When you talked about earlier, Mark, about getting what your why or your purpose is. Because I'm a guy that I've never really had a why or purpose, right? Like I don't have some defined, crystal clear why, other than in this game of life, I want to be able to reflect and just be like, look, I did everything I could to grow and expand in my full potential as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a person, as an entrepreneur, and that's it, right? So,
I don't think that's a bad why, Josh.
Yeah,
that's continual growth and improvement, which means, like, if you ever saw that Netflix documentary, Jiro Dreams of Sushi, this guy's always trying to get better every single day, knowing he's never going to get to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's phenomenal.
No finish line, man. It's no finish line. Yeah. I mean, I can't fathom, like, retirement's probably the curse word in my dictionary, right? I could have technically retired about 5 years ago, right? But I'm like, what are you going to do? Right? Now we just get to create things. And I guess it is a different element of, again, in the beginning, you're doing a lot of things that you don't enjoy doing, but then you're able to delegate a lot of those things out as you build this over time the right way. But then you get to focus and do the things that you really love doing and focus on those on the highest possible level.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Josh, we're at that point now in the podcast where we're going to put you on the spot and ask you for your tip of the week, a website, a resource, a book, something actionable for the Art of Passive Income listeners to go right now, improve their businesses, improve their lives. What have you got?
So tip of the week is, I know as entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs sit there and think it's funny or whatever to say that they're impatient. And I get that we can all be impatient people, but learn to be patient. Learn to play the long game, right? Don't try to be growing after sprints, especially if you want that true wealth, to create true wealth and true passive income. Like you got to be patient. You got to be willing to invest for that long game. That's would be one of my biggest tips overall for business. What was the other one? A website?
Well, I mean, just that can be your tip. If you want to do another tip, that's
cool.
Great. Yeah. No, that's a good one. Play the long game. Think long term. Don't go for the short, quick, easy fix. I like that.
Everybody's chasing 6-minute abs, man. They just don't exist.
6 minutes, exactly. Do you ever watch the movie Step Brothers?
Yeah, a long time ago.
He shows he's like, I haven't had a carb in 8 years. This is what I live with. And they show like a 6-pack.
Yeah.
So Scott Todd, what's your tip of the week? Wait, Scott.
Mark, check out bluetick.io. Bluetick.io. And This thing is pretty dang cool because what you can do is imagine like your autoresponder series.
Is it TIK or TICK?
TICK, bluetick.io. Imagine like your autoresponder series.
Okay.
And the thing is that what it does is think of like combine that with like a bot, if you will, one that will look at kind of the responses. And you can create kind of custom responses. So let's say I send an email and someone replies back and says these keywords. Well, then it would just go ahead and respond back with this stuff. So it kind of like automates your responses. It's pretty cool. I started playing with it on a trial, and it's pretty dang cool. It's kind of like a warm follow-up process email, but at scale.
Okay, so it's like a bot, where I can then program the bot based on this response to this email.
Yeah.
If these words are in it. So for example, my keyword would be land moto.
Right.
Your email would reply automatically back. Are you interested in land moto?
Kind of, yeah. You can personalize it to each prospect within seconds. You can walk leads through the sales process. It becomes kind of like this painless thing. It's pretty dang cool what they're doing with it.
All right, I'm going to get it. That's it.
Check it out. I mean, just check it out.
Don't get it, or just check it out?
Check it out. I mean, like you can get it, but check it out first, see if it's a good fit for you.
All right, great. Well, my tip of the week is get shirts done. Go to the GSDmode.com and listen to how Josh gets it done. It's a great podcast. And, truly for those Grant Cardone fans, Gary Vee fans, you got to have Josh Smith in your repertoire of people that are going to motivate you every single day to think bigger, to be better, to act more boldly. You like that? That's the new BBB, baby. Josh Smith way of doing it. So GSDmode.com is my tip of the week. Josh, are we good?
I think we're good. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, good. Scott, are we good?
Yeah, we're good, Mark.
Well, I want to thank all the listeners, and I want to remind you, the only way we're going to have the quality of guests like a Josh Smith from GSDmode.com is if you do us three little favors. You got to subscribe. You got to rate. You got to review the podcast. Send us a screenshot of that review to support at thelandgeek.com. We're going to send you for free the $97 passive income launch kit. Today's podcast is sponsored by Flight School. Learn more about Flight School. Just go to thelandgeek.com/training. Schedule a free strategy call. See if Flight School is going to be a good fit for you. I want to thank everybody and let
freedom ring.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Art of Passive Income podcast. Start your journey at www.thelandgeek.com and www.scotttodd.net. Rate and review the podcast and email support@thelandgeek.com. Your screenshot for a free passive income launch kit.